When I was making $228,000 in commissions per year, about half of those commissions I was making during a no-show or an empty space on my calendar. Here's how I did it. What most people do during a no-show or an empty space on the calendar in the high-ticket closing industry is they just watch random YouTube videos, they go on walks, they do random role plays with a sales homie, which those things, how many of those things actually makes you money while doing it? None of it. And you may be saying, yeah, but fixing my script and doing role plays that help me to get better sales. Yeah, you do that outside of your selling hours. During your selling hours, you sell. During your working hours, you work. Isn't that a crazy concept? So what I have here is the no-show SOP, which I actually share with my Real Sales System community members and my private one-on-one students. But I'm just giving you a sneak peek, just a little bit of the sauce, you know what I mean? So you can take away with it, actually implement, so you also can close deals during your no-shows and run laps around everyone else on your sales team. Here we have the no-show SOP. And the reason why we want to have an SOP, a standard operating procedure, is because whenever we have to think and try to make decisions, hey, which one should I do first? Then now we have something called decision fatigue. Decision fatigue is when you're trying to make a decision and your mental brain capacity gets used. Therefore, now physically you start feeling tired, which is the worst place to be at. Because now, let's say you have a no-show, for example, right? Let's say you got a no-show, and then now you're like, what do I do? Should I text them? Should I call them? And also, if the person still doesn't show up, which person should I follow up with? What should I do? Then now you're just wasting time in important mental bandwidth, which is no bueno. Because during your no-show time, you want to get into immediately, almost like you don't have a choice, you immediately start calling leads instead of watching YouTube videos, because that's the only thing, that's our only job, to actually sell, close deals, make commissions, bring the business money. That's what we're here to do. That's our fucking job. And that's how we're gonna make money. So when you're trying to call those leads, there's different options at hand, right? So you could call people who showed up to a sales call but didn't buy. There are people who booked a sales call but didn't show up. You could call your client list. You could call them to upsell, no-show, referrals. Like, what do I do? There's an old list, there's the opt-in list. Which one should I call first? So here's the SOP that I've developed. That way now, okay, here's what I do. In that order, I don't have to think. I don't have to use my important brain capacity. I can use that brain capacity when I'm actually talking to the leads and actually make money. Let's get into it. Here's my sales type distribution. Here's a pie chart. This is taken from a tracker, because my tracker, it automatically calculates it, and now it just shows on the tracker in the pie chart. So about half of those, 51.4% came from the one call closes, my sales. 32.4% came from follow-up sales, and 16.2% came from my upsells, okay? So this is one of the months, which is, it looked pretty typical like this. So if I just solely relied on the one call closes, then that would mean I would have been losing out on the other half of my commissions. And last year in 2023, I made $228,000 in commissions. So what does it mean? If I didn't do the follow-ups and the upsells, meaning that whenever I had a no-show, an empty space on my calendar, if I just sat there with my dick in my hand doing nothing, then I would have lost out on about $110,000 to $128,000 during that year, which is a lot. So let's get into it. So the no-show SOP is not only used whenever you have a no-show, it's also used whenever you have an empty space on the calendar while you have your work day. Because let's say you have 8 hours allocated for the day and you don't have a sales call booked, what are you gonna do? Well, it's not a no-show, but you still have empty space. So you want to at least have an at-bat, a possibility of making this sale by talking to a lead, right? So here's what you do immediately when you do get a no-show. Let's say you have a sales call booked at 12 p.m. today and the person's not showing up. Here's what you do. You need to contact the lead that's booked right now to get them to show up first. What a lot of people do is they just don't contact the lead. They just sit on Zoom like this, twiddle their thumbs, and for like 10 minutes, they don't show up, they go watch YouTube after. But the person maybe just didn't know they had to hop on Zoom. So you could just call them and bring them on Zoom and vice versa. So here's what we do. Number one, if they're not showing up 2 minutes after the scheduled time, let's say the call is booked at 12 p.m., it's 12:02 right now, you call them. You call them, ring, 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 ring 4 times, call them again, ring, ring, ring 3 times. Okay. Reason why we call twice is because the first time that you call them, it may show up as spam, but you call them right after, then it may not show up as spam, or they'd be like, first they didn't know who it was, and then, oh, there's a person calling me again, so let me just pick up, right? So don't overdo it. Once or twice, more than enough. When they pick up, you say this. Hey Jack, it's just Brian from XYZ company name. Yeah, I'm just on Zoom waiting for you to join. Do you have the link? Simple as that. They're like, oh, I didn't know it was on Zoom. Yeah, I'll send you the link right now, right? So on and so forth. Now, if they don't answer, you leave a text of the same thing. I'm on Zoom. Hey, Jack, it's just Brian from company name. I'm on Zoom waiting for you to join. Do you have the link? Question mark. Simple. After that, they don't show up for 5 minutes. Here's what you send them. You don't send them an email. Okay. The reason why I send them an email is because a lot of times they may not see the text, but they may be on their email. So we're hitting them from different angles. So, hey, prospect name. I'm on Zoom waiting for you to join, but don't see you in the waiting room. Here's the link again in case you need it. Insert Zoom link. I'll be here for another 5 minutes before moving on to my next appointment. Your first name, Brian. And you can also, you don't have to type this out immediately like all the time and after that. And after each time, you can actually have this as a template in whatever CRM you use. If you use Close.io, HubSpot, whichever one you use, you can just have it as a template. If you don't know how to do it, ask your tech team or your sales manager, or watch a YouTube tutorial. It's really quick. So you send them the template. So what it does is it automatically changes their prospect first name and your first name. So all you got to do is just send them the Zoom link. Simple as that. Subject line, I like to put our meeting. The O, I like to put it lowercase because whenever it's a lowercase, it seems less automated. So now they're like, oh, let me just open it up, right? So you do that, and then you wait for 3 minutes. What I do is I give them about 10 minutes to show up, okay? Now, if they didn't show up after 10 minutes, you want to communicate with your SDR if the call came from the SDR. So whether it be a DM setter or an outbound setter, then you just want to tell them, this is typical one I use, let them know, hey, Jack Smith didn't show up. Could you rebook onto my calendar? Question mark. You just send them that. You want to communicate with that because ideally you have the setter rebook that onto your calendar. That way you can follow up with other leads. Now, if it came from like a cold book a call, VSL, they talk to nobody, then you just set a calendar reminder or to actually follow up with them in the task in the CRM to actually follow up with them. That's what you want to do. Otherwise, the lead goes to waste. Now you're not talking to nobody. The business loses money. You lose money. Nobody's happy. Now, after the person doesn't show up after 10 minutes, now you go hunt. This is the fun part. So this is the SOP. Let's go to a different order. Now, this is a general one. It needs to be customized and personalized because every offer is a bit different. But here's typically the one that we go through, okay? First thing I want to do is this. You don't want to immediately go into following up with people that didn't buy or whatever it may be. The first resort is you start with people that booked on your calendar on the later in the week. For example, let's say today's Monday. It's Monday, 12 p.m. The person didn't show up. It's 12:10 right now, 12:10. Let's say you have sales calls booked Thursday. You call those people and bring them forward. What does that mean? You call them, right? So you call them, they answer. It's like, hey, Jack, it's just Brian from company name. Yeah, I know we have a call booked on Thursday, but my previous appointment just wrapped up earlier. You just want to talk now? So what are you trying to do? You're trying to bring people forward to now. And then you work your way backwards. Thursday, call all those people, didn't answer. Wednesday, go through all those people. Tuesday, go through all those people. And then now you book them in. Okay? Reason why you want to do it this way is because people booked a sales call anyway. So might as well bring them to now because the further they're booked out, let's say today's Monday, they're booked out Thursday, they're more likely to no-show. Right? The more likely they're no-show because the further they're booked out. But if you bring them to now, and what you do is you drag the calendar in the event. Let's say it's booked on Thursday. You click it, and then you move into now, today, right now. Because what that does is it frees up that spot on the Thursday so another lead can get booked in. This is really the cheat code. You do that, and then you bring them. And because what I found is this, I don't know the reason why, but when I do this, typically I tend to close more of those people at a higher probability. Because maybe it's in the moment, maybe it's spontaneous, maybe you get them in a hot buying emotion state, whatever it may be, it doesn't matter. But now you would have gotten a no-show, you would not have closed that deal, but now you have an at-bat, a possibility of actually closing that deal. So that's the first thing usually I do. Second is, as we see in the SOP, I start calling expiring clients. Now, this is if you have typically an upsell in your business, in the offer that you sell. So expiring clients, meaning that let's say it's a 90-day program, that's the front-end sale. Maybe that's a 10K program, and maybe you have a 20K program as an upsell. So I start with the people that are about 60 to 90 days in, between that range, between day 60 to day 90. Reason why is because I found that when I try to upsell right away, like people that are maybe like 7 days in or 10 days in, I usually run into a concern or an objection them saying, yeah, I think that sounds interesting, but I'm just like a few days in, so I just want to see how this program grows first, and then we can talk about it later. So it's not impossible, but I find, and to me, it's fair enough too. I was like, that's fair enough too. I mean, you just got in. Now, if it makes sense, then you can actually upgrade. But what I found is this is an easier path I found. So day 60 to 90, what you can also do is set up smart views in your CRM. What are smart views? Smart views are simply lists, and you can set different filters to get specific lists. So you can set close layout, for example, and I think you can do it in HubSpot and like whatever CRM you use. Ask your sales manager if you don't know how to use it. Ask your tech team, or if you don't know how to do it, ask YouTube. Okay, be resourceful. Figure out I can't because of XYZ. I don't know how to do XYZ. No, how can I XYZ? That's what solves problems. So you set the smart view to okay, they enrolled this day, and it's about day 60 to 90. And local time is between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. because if you call them too early, they get pissed off. If you call them too late, they get pissed off. So local time between 8 a.m. to 8 p.m. Lead owner, typically you can do you as an example. And you just want to segment these things. Those are typically the filters I set. Okay. Then I do that and I run them through a power dialer. A power dialer is something called, it's pretty simple. You click call on that list and it automatically just calls each person instead of you having to manually go into each lead and call them each time. So it rings, and you can set it different settings. It can do 4 dials a minute, meaning that 15 seconds each per lead, right? So, and then it automatically moves on to the next lead without having to lift a finger. It's amazing. So you do that, and I go through the expiring client list because that was my strength, right? That was my strength because I just developed a process for it, and I just knew that those people are going to be easier conversations, easier sales, and higher commission value, right? Because it's not like they're super skeptical because they've already been through the program. They're familiar with the program, the concepts, the influencer. They've already talked to me, right? We had conversations. We have a relationship built. So I found that those are easier conversations, and I was able to upsell more people through that. So that's the first thing. Next, we have the expired client list. Expired, meaning that they already, the program length already expired. So it's a 90-day program. It's been more than 3-4 months. So they're not in the program anymore. You can still call up those people. It's like, hey, like how's things been going, and then see like, what are you looking for? What's the goal now? And what's the problem? And then you position the upsell as a solution to the problem. And yes, it's not as hot as the expiring client list because they're still in the program, but these people are not. But still, they've been to the program. And even if you haven't sold them, someone else sold them, but maybe that rep is no longer with the company or whatever it may be, then still they have a relationship. They're familiar with the influencer. They're familiar with the program, so on and so forth. And then you call them up, and then you can actually upsell them through them as well or renew. Okay, you may have upsells in your offer. You may have renewals in your offer. You can keep selling them. Then I'll typically go into my no sale follow-up. So no sale follow-up meaning that people I talked to on a sales call but did not buy for whatever their objection was. So maybe they wanted to do it, they didn't have the money together, or they had the money but they're skeptical. They're like skeptical, or hey, let me think about it. They have more concerns. They're afraid of spending the money, and maybe I just ran out of time to objection handle because I had to go to my next call. I'd call those people up. Because on my last call, I talked to them, I try to objection handle, and I'll send them material in between. I call them up, and then I go through my scripting for the no sales, and then I actually try to sell them. So that's really the situation. I've had scenarios where, and the thing is, it's not sexy, it takes effort. And I'm not saying it has to be like a super grind, but this is how you get better at sales anyway, calling up those no sales, because now you have to get better at objection handling. And this is what it does. Instead of trying to role play, why not call them? It was a quote unquote lost sale. But if you talk to them now, you can actually revive it, and you get better at objection handling, better than doing a random role play because now you're in real life scenario in real time. So that's what I did. And have situations where, you know, the objection handling could take 8 minutes and then, or it could take 3 minutes too, because maybe they wanted to do it. I just follow up with them. They just have to get the money together. It's like, hey, Brian, I got the money together. Can we hop on a call? All right, sweet. Call them. All right, cool. Take card details, onboard, boom, ready to go. Or it could take 1 hour objection handling. Or I remember last Christmas Eve, I objection handled this guy for, I think, 3 hours. And then I piffed him for 8.5K. And then I had another scenario where it would take me like about an hour to objection handle over just a phone call, right? On WhatsApp, I'd call them and I'll just walk around my house. It doesn't have to be you sitting down at a Zoom call. That's the cool part about it. So I found that, I don't know about you, but whenever I'm just on audio walking around my living room, I just feel better. I'm more casual. I have less attachment to the sale, and I get my steps in, and I just felt that it's more fun for me. So you just have your headset or whatever, and AirPods, I don't recommend it because it just does the drowning sound. if you have the noise canceling. So maybe just undo the noise canceling. Just make sure your audio is good. But you do that and you're walking around and then you objection handle and then I got sales through that. Right? And that's what you want to do. Do not give up on sales. And you should be more invested in those people rather than the first call because you already talked to them. So you have more investment. So might as well get them to the finish line. Now, they may not close exactly on that call, the follow-up call, but you're getting them closer to the pipeline. So look at it like that. You're not trying to get the sale. You're trying to get them closest to the pipeline as possible. Just like, push them in, push them in, push them in. And then now you get to the finish line. Another list you can do is calling up your no-shows. And when you're calling up your no-shows, a common mistake people make is when they call a no-show, usually they try to, hey, oh, you forgot, oh, it's all good. And they try to book them in for the next day or the following day. You don't have to do that. You can actually skip the line and you can sell them on the spot. If both of you have the time, you don't even have to ask them if they have the time, because if you ask that, then now they have a way out. Just take them all the way through a sales script as if they booked them in for a sales call. As if they showed up for a sales call. So like, okay, what are they looking for? Problem, future page goals, cost of inaction, pitch, objection handle, price, all of that. Just go through all that when they pick up. You don't have to book them in for the next day. They already picked up. Just talk to them as far as you can. The only time you would book them in for the next day, whether it be from an outbound or a follow-up or whatever it may be, is that either they're so ice cold, they have no idea what's going on, so ice cold that you do want to warm them up a little bit by sending them client case studies or educational videos on what your business does. Then you have them as a homework and then you have them show up the next day, or you run out of time. Like you don't have the time, you got to go to the next call or whatever it may be. In that case, you would do that. Otherwise, you can just sell them on the spot. Do not put artificial barriers in front of you. Next list is you can take other reps' leads. This is going to be a controversial one because a lot of people are afraid of doing this, but there's a quote unquote, I guess, like ethical or fair way of doing this, if I want to put it that way. So an easy one you can go after is reps that were part of the company but left the company. So they're no longer with the company. They're no longer with the company. No one's following up with them. Might as well be you. Otherwise, someone else is going to take them, whether it be from your company or someone else, some other company. So whenever reps leave, I always say, hey, don't be sad. Take all of their leads. Be a shark. That's what you want to do. I always say, we have a saying in our real sales system community. We say a sales professional that's going after these leads, we call them a shark, because what happens, right? You ever had a situation, I don't know about you, but I sold at 7th level, which is the main offer I was on. And on that offer, everyone was a shark, meaning that let's say you have a deal, some other rep took your deal and they made the sale. We'd call them, oh, they sharked your lead. You sharked my lead. We'd call it that. Now, unfair way, like a way of doing it, like a low blow would be you're already following up with that lead constantly. You talked to them yesterday, they're going to get the money together, you're going to sell them, but another rep actually sold them instead of you. That would be a low blow. That would not be fun. However, a fair way of doing it is if reps left, dude, nobody's calling them. The leads now belong to nobody. Might as well be you. So you go after those people. How you do that, you have different ways of doing it. So when you're upselling people, I like to use a customer support angle, customer support frame. It's like, hey, how's it going, Jack? Hey, Jack, it's just Brian from company name, client support team. How you doing? If it's a client that you've never talked to. Because what that does is it drops their guard. So when I'm going from follow up with no sales with someone else's leads, I like to go from a manager frame, which I learned from Matt Ryder. So a manager frame is almost as if you're in a higher position, not a sales rep, but almost like the sales manager of the company or like a manager of the company without saying you're the manager, which elevates your status, which drops your guard. How I do that typically, it's like, hey Jack, it's just Brian from XYZ company. How you doing? Yeah, so it looks like you had a call with us a while ago. I don't even know if you remember, with one of our team members, Jack. He's no longer with the company. But you might ask a few questions about your experience with that conversation. So when you ask that question of, hey, do you mind if I ask a few questions about what your experience was like talking to that team member, talking to that person? Then what that does is now it's almost like, yeah, I'm just like seeing like what's going on. Another way I do that is, yeah, so we're just seeing we're just going over our system and it looks like there's some inaccuracies in the data. Do you mind if I ask a few questions about what your experience was like with that person? So when you do that, they're like, oh yeah, sure. So it drops their guard instead of trying to sell them something, right? So you go through that. So that's for the reps that left the company. Another situation is the reps that are still with the company, but that lead, other reps have not contacted for 30 plus days. We call that free game. Because let's say there's Jake in your company and this lead, Jake has not contacted for 30 plus days. Then, well, nobody's contacting them, then might as well go after them. right? So if they come to you like, dude, what the fuck? Why are you going after my leads? Well, it says you didn't contact them for 30 plus days. So nobody's contacting them, right? So like now they have nothing else to say because, well, you're not following up with them, bro. But now let's say in a scenario, because this happens too. Let's say they were contacting them from their personal phone, right? Not from the CRM, and they can prove it by evidence. Then in that case, like, oh, dude, I had no idea. It's all good. Like, my bad, dude. It's all yours. You just back off and like no dramas. That's it. So key here really is that you start, and that's a general one. That's a generic one. You got to mold it to your offer because every offer is different. So you start with the ones that have the highest possibility of buying in the shortest amount of time possible with the least amount of effort possible. That's going to have the highest commission value possible. Okay. So for an example, you'd rather follow up with lists, or you'd rather follow up with leads that are most likely to buy, rather than people are like still skeptical. Yeah, still follow up with those people, but later, because those are going to take more nudges, right? Maybe more follow-up calls. That's fine. Or maybe more effort. And you want to start with the ones that are going to have the highest commission value, meaning that if someone's a 3K deal and someone's going to buy a 20K deal, if all else is equal, then you might as well talk to the 20K deal person, right? Because we only have a finite amount of time and energy and focus. So you start with those, and then you work your way backwards. Also leaning to your strengths, because for me, it was the upsells, because I started developing processes for it. And for me, it was just fun. And I was getting quite a bit of return on my efforts because the upsells are higher commissions. Now, someone like Matt Ryder, for example, when I asked him, hey, Matt, what was your go-to list? He said, no sales of other reps. Because he said, well, no one else on my offer, like pretty much all the other reps on my offer were shit at sales. So I knew that if I talked to them, I could probably sell them. He was confident with that because he was good with objection handling, so on and so forth. That was his strength. So that's what he went with. So what is your strength? Obviously, you're going to develop other skill set and you're going to increase your weaknesses and make them better. But for now, what is it? And then you start with those ones.